12th edition of the City of Atlanta's Council's Finance and Executive Committee meeting. I'm Howard Shook, Chair. To my right is Vice Chair Juan. Mr. Winston is to his right. Ms. Overstreet is now joining us. We have Mr. Hillis with us. Other members will be coming in. We do have a quorum, though, so I'm going to call this meeting officially to order. As regards the agenda, I would like to make a motion to adopt it with the addition of a first read. Second by Overstreet. If everyone's ready, let's open that vote.
Vote is closed.
All right, the agenda has been adopted as amended. You've all carefully perused the minutes of the prior meeting. I will therefore move their approval. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote. All right, minutes are adopted, so ordered. That takes us to public comment, and we do have several speakers. You will have 3 minutes. The first is Ocean Zotique.
Hi, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Well, I stand before you as a resident of Atlanta and a product of the city. I was born at Georgia Baptist Hospital on the Boulevard and attended Holy Spirit Prep right here in Atlanta. My grandparents attending the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, and my aunt actually working for Trust for Public Land in Midtown. So I have fond memories of growing up here, even attending the Olympics in '96. Recently surviving a near fatal collision with a pickup truck while training for my Ironman brought me to a little more attention to my local community. And I have been working for my HOA over Renaissance Park and participating in the NPUM. So recently, my main concern, I discovered some potential mismanagement of funds for our pickleball court over in Central Park, Renaissance Park area. And it just makes me wonder about the accountability process and the oversight process for our city finances. I'm aware of the dispute between the city and MARTA regarding the $70 million in funds that are audited, owed back from MARTA to the city. And again, it makes me wonder about oversight mechanisms that are in place, and if any existing frameworks are in place for monitoring waste, fraud, and abuse, what they are. I read that about the oversight responsibilities distributed across the Auditor's Office, the Inspector General, the Compliance Division, and the Citizen Review Board. But I don't personally know how those collaborations and communications work. All I know is that I'm trying to take my dad to play pickleball, and I can't. So I'm really more of a question, because I know it's my first time even attending this. But as I learn about this, as I said, there's these multiple agencies in the city that are overseeing, and I'm trying to understand, as a citizen, taxpayer, HOA president, a little bit better how this is supposed to work, or how it does work, regarding that transparency, and regarding how we can use our resources to be safer, more equitable, and more accountable. So yeah, with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
All right. Thank you. And we've got your email address here, so I'm going to ask the appropriate person in Parks and Rec to get your question answered.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Greg Levine, followed by DeLille Anthony.
Hello, everybody. I'm speaking on the, I guess, recent legislation, which I haven't seen the latest version of, so I'm sorry if I get some of this wrong. Originally, the city created inch per inch, as y'all all know, replacement of trees to help make the city and the community whole on the benefits that trees bring. The city is definitely losing trees, and people will continue to suffer from that tree loss. But we've always had these public trees that get replaced. The city's done right by the community by replacing those inch per inch. We totally understand. I think nonprofits, many of the supporters of trees, understand the inch per inch can be a hindrance to getting projects moving forward. Totally understand that. For years, we've supported getting rid of it with replacing it with a fair recompense value. In 2019, the city came up with a fair recompense value at $260. It's being put in the ordinance proposal over the next 5 years at $260. With that said, even that number, you can't really plant trees the inches back. We all know that. Or, tree planting is anywhere between, for 2.5-inch caliper, somewhere between 1,000 and we've seen some contracts are 1,500 to 1,600 that are not trees and lands. So it's more expensive, than this 260. This 260 equals about $750 for a 2.5-inch caliper. It would be a great break to the city to go with that number and then plant as many trees on site for any public project. And I know you're not even considering every public project. Everybody may not agree with me, but with the 260, I think it makes sense for public projects to have the possibility to plant as much on site or tree per tree gets removed, with the rest of it being that recompense. We know that we're about to get an assessment that's going to show that we're continuing to lose canopy. We believe it will be under 45%. It's the speed of what we're losing canopy is definitely going faster as the years go by, as Atlanta has become a place for people to move to. The right decision is to make sure that the city is doing its best to have their own developments, try to preserve as many trees as possible, and when it can't be done, that they do everything to make the city whole. And these funds, as y'all know, can go into recompense funds that can buy forested land, which will protect some of those forests that are left. And there are a lot of city projects, I'm not sure which ones, because I haven't seen that final language, that would be removing a lot of trees, and without that recompense, we can't protect what we have. This is an opportunity to improve it, and I'm all for it. The organization is all for it as well. But y'all know where we're coming from. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The tree ordinance, I know y'all want to do this as the tree ordinance is passed. As I understand it, even if it's passed, it would be January before it's actually implemented. There's another 9 months of projects going through that will be using this either no recompense or an outdated recompense number.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Anthony.
Hi, my name is Dalil Anthony, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the tree advocacy group called the Tree Next Door. I echo Greg's sentiments. Some concerns I have with this latest substitute ordinance that we just saw yesterday after the CDHS committee meeting was that, first of all, it says in the substitute ordinance that instead of just trying to, I'm not sure, but okay. Anyhow, what it says is that all public projects are going to be exempt from the entire tree protection ordinance. And I don't think that's what you really mean, because that means no permits have to be pulled, the arborists do not have to be consulted. It's just a free-for-all for all public projects. And so what we would like to do is limit that ordinance to focus just on the tree replanting part, which is what I understand is causing you all the issue. And the tree replanting part needs to be at least 1-for-1 on the site, and then what can't be replanted there needs to be recompensed at the full $260. Because if it's not, we're just giving away trees, and we don't need to be doing that in this environment right now. The other thing that we have a problem with is there is no real firm deadline. The deadline to say it's contingent upon the tree ordinance being passed and implemented is a little sketchy, because I've been in this tree advocacy business now for about 20 years, and we haven't passed an ordinance yet, and yet we've been trying to since the mid-2000s. So I hope it gets passed, but it may not. So what I'd like to do is add to the ordinance that this exemption comes to an end when the new tree ordinance is adopted, or December 31st, 2025, because that is, when the new tree ordinance is supposed to be adopted after that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We've been joined by Mr. Byron Amos. That takes us to presentations. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Overstreet.
Just want you all to know that I definitely hear you. There is a more current amendment that speaks to it, and I'm going to ask that we give you all this one. I think it was done within the last hour. So I definitely hear you. I honestly think that we're all on the same page. Promise we weren't being sketchy, although I didn't actually write this legislation, but it's some of the same concerns. But not being sketchy at all by not having a date on here. I think our tree protection ordinance is actually as ready as it's going to be. So I would love to go ahead on and start voting on that now, to be honest, but I don't mind at all putting an end date to add that to this legislation. But yeah, I hear you. I do. I just know that I've asked every council member who needs trees, because I would like to get Zone 4 done, and no one has room for trees. Trees Atlanta, I mean, they're at capacity of helping at this point, and I understand that too. Just looking for a collaboration somewhere for us to meet with the situation that we're in right this moment, and I do think that we're where we need to be with that, according to what this latest is. And I'm getting ready to hand this to you now, as soon as we get it printed, okay? But always open for, dialogue for sure, especially where our trees are concerned. I mean, I'm in District 11. I'm there because I love the trees and I love, the yard and the space. And I definitely appreciate you all staying on top of this, because we do want to preserve our trees. So thank you.
All right, thank you. In terms of presentations, our procurement chief cannot be with us today, so we will hear that report at our next sitting. That takes us to an update regarding goings-on under the Gold Dome. And I see Ms. Norwood out in the audience. Are we ready for the legislative update? All right, we'll come back to that. Well, let's deal with our communication. 25C0034, it's communication from the mayor appointing Ms. Candace Franklin to serve as a member of the Atlanta-Fulton County Library System on behalf of the City of Atlanta. The term limit is to be concurrent with that of the mayor. At the administration's request, I will make a motion to hold. Second by Mr. Wan. If there's no discussion, let's open that vote on the motion to hold, and then we'll get our legislative update.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, items held. We'll take that up next time. And now for our legislative update, if you're ready. You all should have copies of the slide deck. And Ms. Bakhtiari is joining us.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Thank you for giving me a few moments to give you a brief update. And so I'm going to go over some of the federal and state legislative items. My name is Justin Kernan. I'm the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for the Office of the Mayor. And so I know a lot of this stuff, we've heard a lot about in the news. And unfortunately, right now, when we come to a lot of the things going on the federal level, there are still a lot more questions than we have answers, but I'll do my best to just present some information and answer whatever questions I have that you have. We'll start with the federal buildings in Atlanta and the Trump administration's impact. There was an initial plan for federal property sales in early March of 2025. The Trump administration aimed to reduce government expenditure identified 440 federal properties nationwide for sale. This list included prominent buildings such as the Sam Nunn Federal Center, the largest federal building in the Southeast. Shortly after its release, the General Services Administration removed the list from the website, citing the need for reassessment during significant public interest and concerns raised by a lot of local officials. The future properties like the Sam Nunn Atlanta Federal Center remains uncertain under the current process and is still pending review. Outside of these properties for sale that may or may not be listed for sale, we have been notified, and we've seen it in the news, that the Small Business Administration is relocating its regional office from Atlanta. We don't have all of the exact details ready on that, but we can keep you posted on details following all of those things. And then next we can discuss the CDC, Centers of Disease Control layoffs. In February of 2025, the Trump administration implemented significant layoffs at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, affecting approximately 1,300 probationary employees. These cuts were part of a broader effort to reduce the federal workforce. And approximately 2 weeks after the layoffs, the CDC rescinded terminations for about 180 employees requesting their immediate return to work. The reversal was communicated through urgent emails indicating reassessment based on the decision. There were also a couple of lawsuits by employee unions and some court rulings that all happened around that same time, which led to the rehiring of some of our federal workforce here in Atlanta. That is an issue that we are going to continue to monitor, especially around our unemployment rates and different things like that, and also the impact that any of those layoffs would have to the city outside of, it may not impact the normal day-to-day business, but it does impact our residents and our taxpayers and things of that nature. So we will definitely keep monitoring our federal layoffs. And so we're going to go and do a brief overview of the state, brief update for what's going on at the state legislature, which I have to get back to following this meeting for some other committee meetings that they have going on over there today. But with the state legislature, crossover day, which is the last day for legislation to move from one chamber to the next, was last Thursday. We are still assessing everything that happened on that date. We are monitoring about 65 different pieces of legislation that have some form of municipal impact. I will not be going over the details of all of those different bills today. However, you all can address me offline at any time to get any type of updates on any of the bills that are a part of our agenda. But what I will do is just go over briefly some of the top items of concern and the top items that are going on at the legislature. I know we have all heard the term tort reform several times over the last couple of weeks, and so there's multiple different tort reform items going on. So you have the governor's tort reform package, which regulates third-party litigation funding to prevent excessive lawsuit financing. It blocks foreign investors from funding lawsuits in Georgia. That bill passed unanimously in the Georgia Senate on February 27th, and it's awaiting review in the House. The interesting thing about this piece of legislation is that after it passed through the Senate, it was then sent to the House Rules Committee, bypassing the House Judiciary Committee. And so the way that has been structured has drawn some criticism. And it's not the normal process for pieces of legislation to travel, but this is the governor's bill, and I'm sure the strategy that was placed was there for a reason. But we're monitoring all things related to the governor's tort reform package. And also there's another item for tort reform, that's municipal tort reform, and this was a bill that was brought by the Georgia Municipal Association, and this legislation was actually amended from its original form, and this would extend the anti-litem periods for plaintiffs to provide notice of intent to sue a city, which changes it from 6 months to 12 months, which is in parity with counties and the state. This same committee also amended the city's limitations of liability, which would be set at $3 million per person and $5 million per occurrence, which is significantly higher and not in parity with counties and states. This is something that's not, it did pass one of the chambers, but this is something that we're going to still work with our partners over at the on the state level to make sure that we can try to get something that actually works for cities. The way that it's written right now, these numbers are too high for it to be of benefit to us at the moment. So we're going to keep having those conversations regarding that. And so those are two of the most popular bills that are going on under the Gold Dome. And like I said, crossover day was last week. We have a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that were a part of our agenda that are still moving through the legislative process, and there's other items that we are trying to find new homes for as the process continues. But I can come back and give you a more detailed update, later on. We have about 3 more weeks of session left. And like I said, you all can feel free to call me at any time if you have specific questions regarding any type of legislation of interest.
All right, thank you. You've heard his request to be able to get back in his foxhole across the street as quickly as possible. But while he's here, are there any immediate questions? And you've also heard his offer to meet with any of us for follow-up. Ms. Bakhtiari.
Thank you. I was going to ask, well, one, thank you for all the work you're doing over there. I know that there's a lot happening under the Gold Dome right now. My question was going to be about the bills we've been tracking regarding city jail. I believe that did not make crossover day.
You are correct. That a bill passed out of the Senate Public Safety Committee and never made it to the Senate floor for a vote. Awesome.
So for anyone who doesn't know, it's a 2-year cycle. So while it's not completely dead, well, nothing is ever completely dead, as you so wisely said the other day, it will be picked up at the same spot and not have to start over in the process. So that's one to keep tracking. And I was also curious, do we know if there were any anti-homelessness bills that were coming down the pipeline?
Anti-what?
There were a couple, most of which, there was one that was a fairly popular bill that was gaining traction and received some committee hearings, but that bill, it was a bill to essentially kind of criminalize homelessness and then require, or it would also allow property owners to sue municipalities if their property values went down. That bill did not make it to the floor for a full vote.
Happy to hear that. And then I know one other bill that I was tracking, because some of us have the school zone speed cameras in our districts. I know that there was a bill, one to regulate, which is great, but another one to try to ban them altogether. Does it look like we're under threat of having those taken?
Under threat? If there's a piece of legislation to do it, the threat is always there. However, the actual process and whether or not that bill is still viable, I'd have to get back to you on that.
Thank you. And then the last question I had was, this is not to do here now because I know my colleagues have questions and you need to get back over to the other side. Would you mind sending the number of anti-LGBTQI plus bills that did make it past crossover day?
So we're not tracking all of those different bills. I would recommend reaching out to any of the advocacy organizations that do track all of those bills. Okay. My primary obligation while I'm there is tracking the bills that have specific municipal impacts of the city.
Understood.
Not saying that those don't, but I'm saying if it doesn't actually impact the way the city does business, those are the top priority bills that impact our people. We watch all the time, but those are not the bills that are constantly in cycle. Every single piece of legislation, which are over 1,000 at this point, has some type of impact for people.
Understood.
So we can't monitor all of them all the time.
Just want to say my community does have a lot of buying power, so we're happy to help out with that. No, thank you for that. I will speak with Georgia Equality and a few others. I do hope we're keeping our eye on some of the more egregious bills, such as the jail bill with trans folks and a few other bills that are happening that are going to threaten the lives of a great number of our constituency.
Absolutely. I can assure you, we watch everything that has the impact for the people in our communities.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Amos.
Yes, sir. Basically, just want to say thank you. Just left the National League of Cities conference in D.C., where we have over 3,000 members of locally elected leadership of city, towns, and villages, and all of us is seeking the same answer you're seeking. Where do we fit as local leadership into this new world order, as some is calling it? So thank you for being there, but I just want to implore to you, don't be afraid to call any of us when, you know, everyone have friends on both sides of the aisle over there. When there's something that needs to be advocated for the city of Atlanta, I know we all would step up and do so. But I do know one question, and there was conversation about something being introduced that would look similar to the Doge thing coming federally. Tell me that's dead, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, there's
The Doge thing.
there were a couple of bills to do just that. I can provide you offline an update on that if you'd like to receive that.
So with DeAndre Upperhart, when we was there, our deputy, and he had me all over the hill. So
I'm sure he did.
There was a piece we didn't cover. So let's build on that to make sure Atlanteans is taken care of.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing else, I will also add my thanks. I know it's trying and exciting times over there, so I will let you get back to your foxhole after we hear from Ms. Overstreet.
Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, could you give us more information about the Develop Fulton situation? There's something happening where they're trying to change the development authority.
That's a detailed and nuanced, but I can get you a response offline.
Okay, and yeah, anytime, it's fine. You just reach out to me, but I was reading about it, and I was wondering if we're paying attention where they're trying to possibly intersect between north and south and have different developments, authorities for different areas. And I just want to know more about that because that was very interesting, and I don't hear a lot about it. So I think that we need to listen in.
Yes, it's one of the bills that we are tracking, but I can provide that
Okay.
update for
Thank you.
offline. Absolutely.
All right, thank you. You need to leave while you can.
Thank you very much for your time today.
That takes us to our second communication, otherwise known as 25C0041. This is a communication from Ms. Hampton, who's chair of the audit committee, submitting the performance audit report on Oracle time and labor, and they have asked to be heard at our next sitting. And so I will make a motion to hold that. Second by Mr. Hillis. Let's open that vote. We're going to
Vote is
have a
open.
lot of backed up presentations awaiting us next time.
The vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, we'll take that up at our next sitting. That takes us to item H, 25O1060. This is an ordinance by Mr. Juan and Ms. Bakhtiari, as amended by Finance Exec, to provide for the annexation of properties located in the Brighton Village subdivision located in unincorporated DeKalb County to the corporate limits of the city of Atlanta, pursuant to the 60% method to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the DCA of such annexation and for other purposes. A public hearing on that is required, and so I will move to open the public hearing. Second by Mr. Juan. Let's open that procedural vote to open the public hearing on this item.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Public hearing is open. And is there anyone who's signed up to speak to this issue? As a motion properly be made by Juan, seconded by Bakhtiari to close the public hearing. And then once we close it, we need to take up an amendment.
We may not have anybody signed up. I thought we did, but my mistake.
The amendment's the plan, right?
The amendment's the plan. I thought we had people signed up to speak. But
Let me ask again. Is there anyone who's here who's signed up to speak to this? I don't want to skip anybody. Apparently not. So, did we carry the vote on closing the public hearing?
One moment. The vote is open.
This is to close the public hearing.
The vote is closed.
All right, public hearing is closed. Now, it's my understanding that we need to amend this by adding the Brighton Village Services Delivery Plan, and so I will make that motion. Second by Mr. Juan. If there's no questions or comments, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, and now I will make a motion to hold this to allow for the companion pieces of legislation to catch up. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Evans, could you sound our first reads, please?
Item number 4 is 25-01147, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend Section 146-26 of the Atlanta City Code to set the ad valorem tax rate for the general levy, bonded indebtedness levy, parks levy, education levy, special tax district levy, and the Atlanta Beltline Special Service District levy based on every $1,000 or part thereof of the value of all real and personal property, to provide that the tax rates established herein shall remain fixed until amended or repealed, to repeal ordinance number blank and for other purposes. Item number 5, 25-01148, an ordinance by Finance Exec Committee to set the ad valorem tax rate for general levy, bonded indebtedness levy, parks levy, education levy, special tax district levy, and the Atlanta Beltline Special Service District levy based on every 1,000 or part thereof of the value of all real and personal property, to provide that the tax rates established herein shall remain fixed until or amended or repealed and for other purposes. Item number 6, 25-01149, an ordinance by Finance Exec Committee adopting the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget to include all funds, to authorize any necessary adjustments to to ensure the proper closeout of the fiscal year 2025 for all funds and for other purposes. Item number 7, 25-01150, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend Part 1, Subpart B, Chapter 6, to update the provisions relating to the composition of the Management Committee of the Defined Contribution Retirement Plan and for other purposes. Item number 8, 25-01151, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend the 2025 Capital Finance Budget and 2025 General Fund Budget by undertaking an operating transfer and adding to anticipations and appropriations an amount not to exceed $10,633,015.00 and for other purposes. Item number 9, 25-01152, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the 7th Amendment to the contract listed here, ATL Cloud Implementation and Post-Implementation Support Services with Deloitte Consulting, LLP, on behalf of the Department of Finance, to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis, effective from September 7th, 2025, for a period not to exceed 12 months, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $5,986,500.00. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the Fund Department organization and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
All right, and then we did agree to take in the following walk-in. Again, that's only a first read. It is 25-0 blank. It is recorded as Elms 37579. It's an ordinance by Finance Exec for a 15th supplemental bond ordinance to authorize the execution, delivery, and performance of a First Amendment to Declaration of Easements to supersede and waive all resolutions and ordinances or parts of resolutions and ordinance that conflict with the provisions of this 15th supplemental bond ordinance and for other purposes. Again, that was our additional first read, and we will take that up next time. That takes us to J, ordinances for second read, first of which is 25-01115. ordinance by finance exec to correct ordinance 22-01831, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on the date listed and approved by the mayor on the date listed, authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the city to enter into a lease agreement with Ultimate Bodies by Carlos, Inc. for lease of commercial space with the property located at 1529 Piedmont Avenue Northeast, Suite L, to recognize the correct legal name of the lessee, deleting the name Ultimate Bodies by Carlos, Inc. as lessee and inserting UBBC LLC as lessee, to ratify all terms and conditions of the lease agreement as amended without change or modification of such terms and for other purposes. It's a simple name change. Motion approved by Juan. Shook will second that. If there's nothing else, let's vote.
The vote is closed.
Okay. The ayes have it. So ordered. 25-01116 is an ordinance by finance exec authorizing the mayor to issue the task order listed pursuant to the resolution listed for the contract listed, which is job order contracting services small with Beatty Construction to add additional funding for Atlanta City Hall repairs and renovations on behalf of Deem in an amount not to exceed $543,307.37. All work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Chair, other members of the council. My name is Chris Davis, Commissioner for the Department of Enterprise Asset Management. Purpose of this legislation is to add some additional funds due to some unforeseen conditions of the work that we was doing here at City Hall. One of the projects that was related to this was replacing a portion of the roof that was damaged, and when we pulled up the old roofing membrane, there was some substructure issues that we had to correct. In addition to that, we been noticing that there has been some deterioration of some of our grouts on the exterior fascia of the building, and that we've been addressing in that situation.
Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. This may be a CFO Bala question. So I see from the legislation that the funding source of this is the GEO bond, which I believe that was only $4 million. So this takes out $500,000 of it. Is it displacing other projects, or how are we making? I mean, I'm supportive of the work. We got to do it, but I'm worried about the financing part of it.
Councilmember Juan, I think these projects were already part of the original bond package.
Correct.
So those were authorized in those mini $4 million baby bond packages that we passed along.
So when we issued the 2022 GEO bonds that this is coming out of, we already knew of this cost overrun at that point?
No, this is what I'm saying. This is unforeseen. So the work that we got started, we did initiate the work. Yeah.
Right. So when we do I thought when we did the GEO bond issuance, we had a project list. So is this displacing something now? That's really the crux of my question.
Yeah. No, this is based upon the list that we talked about. But this
So I hear what you're saying. So there were contingencies that are built. There's interest that's earned in the bond account that covers proportionality to each department's allocation, and Deem is well within their allocation threshold.
To be able to take $500,000 out of a $4 million bond issuance that we weren't expecting. I'm looking at you. I mean, you got to get me comfortable with that.
Yes, they are.
All right, I'll take your word for it. All right, thank you. I'll move approval.
Second by Hillis. Motion by Juan. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, thank you. That takes us to 25-01124. This is an ordinance by Mr. Amos to supplement ordinance number listed here so as to authorize the execution and delivery of an amendment to installment sale agreement between GMA and the City of Atlanta, and for other purposes, all relating to the amendment of the insurance provisions in the installment sale agreement between GMA and the City, securing the GMA Association, Inc. certificates of participation, Series 2018, and for other purposes. And Mr. Deloach, is this you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
My name is Jerry Deloach, Chief Risk Officer in the Office of Enterprise Risk Management in the Department of Finance. The piece of legislation before you this afternoon is to amend agreements that we have with the Georgia Municipal Association. In the original documents, the city agreed to purchase insurance. But for the purposes of this particular agreement, we normally self-insure. And the legislation is authorizing us to go back and to amend the documents to allow us to self-insure as opposed to purchase insurance.
Motion approved by Juan, second by Amos. If there's nothing else, let's vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, the ayes have it. 25-0-11-25 requires a substitute, so I will motion to bring the substitute before us. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, it's before us, and the caption's different. It reads as follows. It's an ordinance by Mr. Bond, substituted by Finance Exec, authorizing the city to donate a total amount not to exceed $6,000 to the First African Community Development Corporation, pursuant to the section of the city charter listed here, to support its efforts to provide free meals to City of Atlanta residents facing food insecurities and for other purposes. The nature of the substitute is that it becomes a straight-up donation other than an agreement requiring an agreement. Motion to approve on substitute. I will second that. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, the ayes have it. Takes us to 25-0-11-30. This is an ordinance by Shook, waiving the competitive source selection provisions contained in the listed code section of the city, the procurement and real estate code, to authorize the mayor to execute the First Amendment to the SP indicated. This is Shelter and Services Program with Cohen Resnick LLP on behalf of the Mayor's Office of International and Immigrant Affairs to add additional funding in an amount not to exceed $500,000. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. I will make a motion to amend this by adding the needed account information. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote on that amendment.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, items amended. Motion to approve by Juan, second by Bakhtiari. If there's nothing else, let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. And that vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. 25-0-11-31 is an ordinance by Shook authorizing the CFO to write off water and wastewater accounts receivable for such accounts rendered uncollectible in an amount not to exceed $5,610,847.98 on behalf of Watershed Management and for other purposes. The department has asked that we hold this. That's my motion. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote on the motion to hold.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, thank you. 25-0-11-32 requires a substitute, and I will second that.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, the substitute is before us. Caption's different. It reads as follows. It's an ordinance by Mr. Juan, a substitute by Finance Exec, authorizing a donation amount not to exceed $5,000 from the District 6 carry forward account to the Piedmont Park Conservancy, Inc., to support their landmark luncheon pursuant to the section of the city charter indicated here and for other purposes. I will second Mr. Juan's motion to approve on substitute. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. 25-0-1134 is an ordinance by Mr. Westmoreland authorizing a donation in amount not to exceed $1,000 from the Post 2 at-large carry-forward account to the Chastain Friends of the Arts pursuant to the same section of the Atlanta Charter. I will motion to approve. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
All right, Section K, Resolution 25R3222, resolution by Shook, requesting the mayor takes into consideration and funds priorities that the Atlanta City Council recommends being included in the FY26 budget and for other. All right, motion is to bring forward the substitute. Let's open that vote. Caption stays the same.
That vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Are we sending it forward? Yeah, traditionally we send this forward so that we can hear from everyone who's not on the committee. So I will second Mr. Juan's motion to do that. Okay. Motion is to send forward with no recommendation.
And the vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. So, Mr. Evans, could you, email all members of council, reminding them that this is coming and that's going to give them an opportunity
We will do that.
to send in their budget requests to the extent we don't already have them. That takes us to 25R3223, resolution by Westmoreland, Bakhtiari, Dozier, and Winston authorizing a donation to the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation pursuant to the section of the city's charter indicated here to continue support for the AVLF's Access to Legal Counsel program that provides eviction defense services to eligible City of Atlanta residents, authorizing the mayor as designee to enter into any necessary agreements to effectuate this donation, to authorize the CFO or his designee to make donations authorized hereby from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes. Questions or comments? Motion to approve by Winston, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. 25R3276 is a resolution by Finance Exec. I'm going to make a motion to bring in a substitute for that item as the caption is different. Second by Bakhtiari. So let's open up that procedural vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, the substituted caption reads as follows. It's a substitute resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor's designee to exercise the second renewal option for the CP indicated ADP implementation and integration with Automatic Data Processing, Inc. on behalf of the Department of Finance, as well as Watershed Management and Aviation and Public Works for a term of 1 year effective May 1 of this year through April 30th of next in an amount not to exceed $177,793.33. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from, etc. Motion to approve on substitute by Mr. Juan. I will second that. Questions or comments? There being none, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
All right, items approved as substituted. 25R 3277 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor's designee to issue Task Order 1 for the contract indicated here. Job order contracting services small with HCR Construction, Inc. for the City of Atlanta Ethics Office renovation project on behalf of Deem, an amount not to exceed $383,631.62, all work being charged to and paid from, etc. Motion to approve by Juan. I'll second that. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, thank you. The ayes have it. 25R 3278 also requires a substitute. The caption's different, so I'll motion to bring the substitute forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, and the caption reads as follows. Substitute resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to refund a customer for overpayment to their water and sewer account in the amount of $42,954.46. All funds being charged to and paid from the sources indicated. Motion to approve by Juan, second by Bakhtiari on substitute. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
All right, the ayes have it. 25R 3279 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the Commissioner of Watershed Management to adjust water and sewer service charges on certain customer accounts in accordance with the Atlanta City Code section listed here in the amount of, well, is the caption different? Yeah, the caption's,
There's a new caption with the substitute.
let me read the caption of the proposed substitute. Authorizing the Commissioner of Watershed to adjust water sewer services on certain customer accounts in accordance with the Atlanta City Code section indicated here in the amount of $204,930.06 and for other purposes. Motion to bring the substitute forward. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
I'll second that. Motion by Juan, second by Shook. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
All right, items approved on substitute. And this takes us to duals. And is this our only dual referral of the day?
Yes, it is.
Okay, now, I'm not sure, there have been so many substitutes flying around, I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to read in at this point. Mr. Hillis?
So there is a substitute that changes the captions. Second.
All right, motion by Juan, second by Hillis to bring forward another substitute. So let's open that procedural vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
All right, and this would be 25-0-1129, an ordinance by Overstreet and Hillis as substituted by CDHS and FEC, an ordinance to exempt all City of Atlanta public infrastructure projects administered by the City of Atlanta's Department of Watershed Management, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Enterprise Assets Management, Atlanta Beltline, Inc., and the Path Foundation, from Chapter 158, Article 2 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, the City of Atlanta Tree Protection Ordinance, until a new tree protection ordinance is adopted by the Atlanta City Council and approved into law to provide that notwithstanding this exemption, that the city shall continue to plant replacement trees within the project site to the maximum extent feasible according to the replacement provisions applicable thereto contained in the tree protection ordinance, and shall continue and shall otherwise contribute to the tree trust fund the replacement value of any trees removed in excess of the trees replaced in the course of any such public infrastructure projects, according to the recompense formulas applicable thereto contained in the TPO, to provide that where any public infrastructure project shall cause the need to remove trees from private property, the portion of the project impacting private property shall be subject to the site plan review process as set forth in Division 3 of the TPO and for other purposes. Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Chairman Shook. Just wanted to first address the substitute and kind of how that's evolved. Of course, Councilmember Overstreet introduced this in my absence last week after I authored it in consultation with the administration after a number of issues had arisen. It first went to CDHS, where it was substituted there. And the short of it was that recompense was added back into the requirement. And then after some discussions today with Trees Atlanta, others and colleagues, this substitute that is before us now, it does require replanting within the project limits to the extent possible, and then calculating the recompense remaining, which would be paid into the tree trust fund. And it also adds, as they are basically building city projects anyways and have faced a lot of the same issues that have been expressed to all, if not most of us up here, is adding the Beltline and the Path Foundation as they work to extend the network of multi-use trails throughout the city. Including a few in my district, which will bring our city to its river for the first time, and a number of sections of the Beltline in my district, and I believe Councilmember Norwood's district, that are still pending and have been met with issues. Just because, as had been discussed, I think most are in agreement that the inch-for-inch requirement when it comes to city project is really no longer feasible, given that we have run out of places that we not necessarily can plant trees, but are allowed to plant trees. I know that Department of Parks and Recreation, even though they enforce this ordinance, they so kindly do not allow other city departments or even the Beltline or Path to plant trees within city parks, at least as of late, and I kind of understand some of that. I mean, I don't think we want to turn Piedmont Park into Piedmont Forest, Councilmember Juan, and other city parks. And then when they go to parks to identify other public places that are not necessarily parks, or perhaps along streets or other City of Atlanta owned land, they say, well, no, you can't plant there because we've already came to an agreement with Trees Atlanta that they need to plant their trees there. So we have DWM, ATL DOT, DEEM, and our partners at Path and Beltline with no place to plant trees. Some of the projects, just for an example, this came on my radar a few weeks ago when one of the unpaved road projects in District 9, which had been pending for 10 years, that this administration has been trying to get off the ground, along with many other, not just Moving Atlanta Forward projects, because that's the new program, but the 10-year-old Renew Atlanta and initial T-SPOS list that prior administrations didn't lift a finger on. Those residents that still somehow in the year 2025 in the city of Atlanta live on unpaved roads that have been promised paved roads for 10 years now. That project got a stop work order and said they could not continue until they found places to plant over 40 trees. Sidewalks. We hear a lot about the tree canopy being under 50%, but another thing that's under 50% is sidewalk coverage in the city, which has led the city to be under a federal consent decree. Recently got a estimate for a sidewalk to connect one of my neighborhoods that actually borders District 8, so families in that Ridgewood Heights neighborhood could safely, and Parks uses this, we want everybody to be within a 10-minute walk of a park, and I add a word to that. I want everybody to be within a safe 10-minute walk to a park. They cannot walk safely to Standing Peachtree, green space that has many trees, and also the city's first access to the Chattahoochee River that was just recently opened. They cannot safely walk there, and in this estimate, the tree recompense and costs were basically at or over the cost of the actual sidewalk work. And again, we are under a federal consent decree to both repair and expand our sidewalk network throughout the city because it has led to many inconveniences of disabled people as well as deaths on our streets. Another federal consent decree, the Department of Watershed Management, that we have been under long before I was even a council member or even thought about being a council member on this body. We have until 2027. I know that we have requested an extension, but that is not guaranteed. This would be our last extension if it is granted, but given the current environment of the new federal administration, who knows if we will even be granted that extension. Sewer projects, and we all know, at least within the last year, of the extent of the need for replacement of our water lines. APD projects, this also got on Councilmember Overstreet's radar in Southwest Atlanta because in the rebuilding police stations that are 50+ years old, and in my district, rebuilding a fire station that is 90 years old. But in the Zone 4 precinct, called for replanting 600 trees. And so, you know, those are some of the examples of projects that need to move forward. You know, this is not something, you know, we're trying to slide under the radar. We're not going to, you know, we're not going to magically build Runway 7 in the Charlotte Nature Preserve. I mean, the city can't even get a project off the ground in a decade. So we know what the projects are. They've been in front of us for anywhere from 5 to 10 years. I think we've come quite a ways, and what this original legislation was introduced as is basically waiving the entire TPO for city projects, which honestly is what most governments do. And we have gotten halfway with reintroducing recompense, and now we went even further to require replanting on site to the extent possible, and then paying into recompense. And I know, you know, people have been anxious for a while for a new TPO. I do not sit on CDHS. I go to those, I go ask to get on that committee when I want to increase fees, and I know recompense does need to be increased, but that will be taken up as part of the TPO because it just doesn't need to be increased for city projects. It needs to be increased upon developers. But I'm glad of the work I did on CDHS and increasing the city's impact fees for the first time since they were created in 1992. And also just recently doubling the Parks Improvement Fund, which added $16 million or a little bit over that to Parks budget each and every year. And I'm sure that will continue to grow as the value of property in the city grows. So that we started on one side and we have met in the middle, and I think this will go a long way in getting all of these, again, unpaved roadways projects, safe streets, sidewalk projects, and watershed projects, mostly sewer projects, under the federal consent decree, moving again. So with that, I will make a motion to adopt as substituted.
Motion's been made to adopt as substituted. Is there a second? Second by Juan. Let's continue discussion to the extent there is any. Ms. Bakhtiari, and then Mr. Winston.
And I just wanted to ask a quick question to either the authors or finance. What are the recompense rate numbers going to be based on? Is it going to be based on the 2019 assessment or prior?
So I can answer that, try to answer that, and I will defer to Ms. Robinson in law, but
Okay.
there is a formula that recompense is based on, which that will remain. And I know there are some proposed changes in the new TPO, but again, those need to be adopted and applied to not just the city of Atlanta, but also private development.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Winston.
Ms. Robinson, did I cover that correctly?
Yes, good afternoon. Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta Department of Law. The recompense generally will be calculated in accordance with 158-103B, which provides a mathematical formula for the calculation of the recompense, as well as 158-103C. Additionally, there is separate criteria for the recompense calculation that is set forth in 158-101J, which is applicable to any projects undertaken in compliance with federal consent decrees, which will also remain in place for such projects.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add to the conversation around adopting the TPO. As it stands right now in the CDHS committee, we're still working through the public process, going through the MPUs. If all is on track, it is the desire, and if it's the desire of the committee, then we'll take that adoption up on April the 21st as the timeline is going forward now. So, I mean, what we're saying now could essentially be a stopgate measure until we're able to get the full adoption of the tree protection ordinance. So hopefully we'll continue that process. I'm hoping to see it through, and I'm hoping that my colleagues will as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing else, we do have a motion with a proper second. I will, in advance, explain why I'm going to abstain. I'm not on a CD, thankfully, and I just got this substitute, so I'm going to need time to sit down and actually digest it. I want to thank those who have worked on this. If they didn't know what a complicated and emotional topic this is, they do now, Ms. Overstreet.
Since you decided you wanted to comment on your vote before we voted, I will do the same. I will be abstaining today to give you all a chance to come and speak with me about what you just read today. The latest one, the one that was developed, within today, since lunch, our lunch hour amendment. I don't mind speaking with you about that before it goes to a full vote on Monday. So I'll abstain today.
All right, if there is nothing else, the motion is to adopt on substitute. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Moves forward, 4 yeas, 0 nays, and 3 abstentions. Do we have any other business, Mr. Evans?
No, there's no other legislative items.
Seeing no one with any announcements, we are adjourned. Thank you.